The Emlid GPS receiver is a popular receiver with users of the FieldGenius Android product. In some cases, there's been a need to extract baselines from Emlid measurements, and this can be done using StarNet. The baselines will be correct, but they won't be weighted because this is simply a limitation of the Emlid receiver. We can use StarNet to import those baselines, and we can assign a provisional weighting to the baselines, and then we'll be able to compute points. So what I've done here is I've started a new StarNet project, and I've also got a raw file that was exported from FieldGenius for Android, and I'm going to open it up using a notepad editor. I'll drag this over. So here's what was exported from FieldGenius. Now there's a number of things that I want to verify here. So one of the things that you'll notice is sometimes the Emlid does not record a base identity. You'll see that here under ref ID if it was recorded, but in this case it's not. It all depends on how you're connected up for RTK. So if we need to explicitly tell StarNet what to name the base, then I can input that by modifying my raw file by typing .base and then space, and here I'm going to give it a name for the base, and so I'll call it base JJ, for example, my initials. And if I know what the base height is, I can type in an antenna height for the base. If it's a network rover, then typically you'd enter 0, or if it was a base and a rover you'd set up, then you're going to type something in there. So that will allow StarNet to give a name to the base point. The other thing that I want to check is I'm going to look into the notes here, and I'll identify what coordinate system was used in FieldGenius for Android, because we'll need to assign that one in StarNet. And so in this case, this is UTM zone. It's in the north group, and it's zone 19. So I just need to know that. And so I think I'm finished with that. So I will save it so that it's got the .base information in it, and I will close it. Oh, wait, there's one other thing that I need to get out of here. The other thing that won't be recorded is, because we don't have a base name, we don't have the base position. However, that is recorded in this GNSS statistics comment. You'll find it right here, and it's very convenient to be able to copy over it all the way to the elevation. And so I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to input that so that I know what the position of the base is in StarNet. So here I'm editing the default data file, so I've just cleared everything, and I'll paste in what I'd copied from the raw file, and I'm going to reformat it so that it can be read by StarNet. So a P allows me to enter a latitude and longitude. And then remember that I'd called this base JJ, so I'm assigning latitude, longitude to base JJ. And so I'm going to change the formatting so that it's DMS format, or actually I can use hyphens as well. So I've got 18 degrees, 16 minutes, and 46.791 seconds. And I'll make that a space here. So this is in the Western Hemisphere. And it'll be 70 degrees, 19 minutes, 18.987, etc. seconds. And then another space, and I would like to give it an elevation. I see that that elevation is shown as metric. And so it'll be important, just in case you're mixing units, to type .units meters just above here, and that will tell StarNet that this is meters. If later on you have measurements that are in feet, you'll need to input .units feet so that StarNet can reinterpret those as well. And then the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to fix that base position. using 3 exclamation marks. So that means a fixed latitude, a fixed longitude, and a fixed elevation. Now, I've got my longitude shown as a positive number. So I'm going to go into project, and I want to make sure that it's interpreting the longitude latitude. Sorry, I better switch this over to a 3D adjustment. And let's see, we want to tell it, oh, sorry, I'm going to have to assign the coordinate system that we looked up as well. So let me go to here, and this will be from the UTM zones north, and it was UTM zone 19 that we saw. So you'll find that StarNet and FieldGenius for Android use exactly the same selection of coordinate systems. Okay, so I'll say OK to that, and now I can go over here and I can tell it that I want the Western Hemisphere to be interpreted as a positive number. That's just what we've got. Now, I think we've got StarNet set up. Now we can start importing the GPS baselines. So we'll go to Input, Import GPS data, tell it we're reading a FieldGenius Microsurvey FieldGenius raw file. I'm going to select Input Files, and I will pick that raw file. Pick on Import, and we close. Okay, so now what we can see is we've got 2 different lines that represents each of the GPS measurements. The G0 could be considered kind of a comment. It's just kind of a timestamp. The G1 is the actual baseline. And so what you'll see is it's from base JJ to point 1. And then there's the delta X, the delta Y, the delta Z, and the base antenna height and the rover antenna height. So that's all that you need to be able to compute a position if this vector here is a antenna phase center to antenna phase center measurement. There are some cases where the receiver reports these as point to point, and in those cases you would not need to correct for antenna height. It'll actually compute the points without that correction. But in this case, I think we need this on. Okay, and then what you'll also find is with most receivers, you'll see that there's a G2 and a G3 line, and they in fact give you weighting for each of the vectors. Those items are missing because the Emlid device does not compute that weighting information. However, and so in fact what you'll find is, now let me just make sure, so I've got base JJ with capital J there, and I called it capital B base. Let's make that lowercase base. Okay, so these 2 files together will be able to compute the positions of each of these points once we've allowed it to weight the positions. So if I try and run an adjustment right now, it's going to give me an error message. That is that we're missing the weighting information. But there's an additional tool in StarNet. I can go to Project, I can go to the GPS tab, and if you're missing the G2, G3 lines, you can input a constant and a ppm to be applied to each of the baselines. And this can be whatever value you want. In this case, I'm being very optimistic because I'm saying that the distance constant will be 1 millimeter, which is fairly small. And these are always input as metric, regardless of whether your project is feet or meters. I can say OK to that. And I'll just run the adjustment again. And now we can see it's applied those provisional weighting values and it's computed new points for us. If I zoom in here, I can see those points. Thanks a lot for following. Hope you get a chance to try that out.